No mai, haere mai, piki mai, kake mai, ki te korero aho ko ki te MAP 2020 Research Exchange Digital and Distanced Dance Potentialities. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So, we're here running a wee experiment. We're here live in Ototahi watching a Zoom together, which seems weird, but also kind of cool. We figured if we could be together, we should, so let's see how that goes. Also, to those of you watching online from wherever you are in the world, kia ora. MAP is a not-for-profit, so if you can, we'd really appreciate a donation, which you can make via our website. All donations go directly towards our running costs that support the community through our annual program, weekly community classes, our community choreographic project, movement labs, the research exchange, and our Ototahi Tiny Performance Festival. Our next big event will be with Matt and Benedicte Onahan-Smith for our Spring Movement Lab on September the 12th. So if you are in Christchurch or want to come and visit us, book now through our website. And also would love it if you could cross your fingers and toes for level 1 for November 27th to 29th for the festival. So, over the last 4 weeks, Movement Art Practice has run the 3rd iteration of the Research Exchange residency program this year, entitled Digital and Distance Dance Potentialities. Previously facilitated in 2015 and 2016, the underlying kaupapa of the residency is that of exchange. While the program gives artists the resources to go deeply into their own practice and research, it is also outward reaching, in that the framework asks them to articulate and share their ideas, process, and outcomes with their peers and public through their web pages, which is an online research journal where they share discoveries, texts, images, videos, and so on, as well as taking over the MAP Instagram and each running a workshop. The web pages will remain on our website, so if you haven't had a chance to check them out, I really urge you to do so. They are a beautiful resource and archive of this moment in time. The residency closes tonight with a final sharing of their work. In some ways, this is a sharing of outcomes, but in many ways, it is a sharing of their beginnings as they emerge from this intensive, reflect and look forward to the way this research can inform their practice in ongoing, meaningful ways. This year, the residencies have occurred simultaneously and collectively. We have touched base each week and engaged in each other's workshops and forged new relationships. It has been my absolute pleasure and a perk of the job to get to know these artists, and I thank them wholeheartedly for their generosity, honesty, and hard work. Thanks also to Virginia Kennard, who works tirelessly to support me and the artists behind the scenes. Kat Roka, Palanakiki Brown, and Paul Young, who did the unenviable job of selecting the three residents out of 31 applications. Thanks to Andrew McMillan and Jos van Beek, who are running the live stream tonight. Preston Hegel and the Exchange for having us this evening, and Jeff Henderson at the Audio Foundation, who would have had us tonight as well in Tamaki Makaurau if you weren't still on level 3. Sorry about that. Also, thanks to Creative New Zealand for funding this project, and Rata and Christchurch City Council, who continue to support the work we are doing. I'm going to now hand over. The first presentation tonight, or sharing tonight, will be Less Sermon, More Song, which is Katrina Bastian, Vasu Afoa Purcell, and Flynn Glendale. They've developed a website and podcast to begin to address mental health and well-being of the dance industry. They will then hand over to Jay Clement and Carlene Newell de Jesus and some of their youth dancers. Their residency is Little Black Boxes, and they've created films and engaged with the effects and experiences of lockdown on young people and the elderly. And then we move to Emma Murray in Switzerland, who has used the time to delve into her archive and work with critical theorist Giulia Palladini in Italy to find ways to interact digitally and live with archive materials. So with no further ado, that's so cheesy, I will hand over to Katrina, Vasu, and Lynn. Enjoy the evening.
The Less Sermon, More Song team, and as Julia mentioned, have been working on creating an online resource for dancers with regards to supporting conversations around mental health and well-being. And what Julia said about this being the beginning of something that will carry on further, that really resonates with this project. We're still very much in the beginning of this journey, and we've been so grateful to have a concerted time to really get started and excited to see where it goes. So I'm Katrina. I am half US American, half German, and moved to New Zealand basically right before the first lockdown, and have been doing a lot of digital work this year, but actually more of a endurance-based choreographer and dancer. And in my time working mostly as a dancer, figured out that there were a lot of conversations that I felt a need to be having, but that weren't happening. So that's where this project began. And then I met Fasu, and that's where this project ballooned into what it is now. So yeah, Fasu, do you want to introduce yourself?
Maloni, Talofalava, and Kia ora. My name is Fa'asua Fopusau. I am a Tokelauan Samoan, New Zealand-born person. I'm a dancer who just graduated from Unitec last year. And yeah, I was connected to Katrina through work that we were helping develop earlier on in the year. And then she approached me about doing a First Fridays where we had these discussions about mental health. And it's something that I'd been wondering and pondering for a long time, especially as a recent graduate venturing out into the world and just trying to navigate my mental health and my art and the industry all at once. So that's where my interest in this project came along. And I think that's me, and hand down to Flynn.
Hey all, I'm Flynn. I'm based in Wellington, and I am a composer, sound designer, web developer. I've worked with Katrina a couple of times this year in my capacity as a composer, and was excited to work with her and Fasu on this project, using both my web development and sound design skills to help bring their beautiful work to the world through various digital mediums by helping edit and get their podcast online, as well as build this site for them to share all the work that they've been doing, which I think we will share some of with you now. Let me just pull it up.
Yeah, so as Julia and Katrina's mentioned, we've created a website through this residency, and which is dancecaremap.nz. It's live now, so you can check that out if you like. We'll go into the about page just to, so you've heard a little bit from us three and what we're about, and if you want to have a little read, this is our formal about page. But I wanted to talk about our name, Dance Care Map. And after a lot of humming and hawing and going back and forth between names and finding names that are already used by other organizations and companies and stuff, we stuck with Dance Care Map. And the word map was really important to us, as we wanted this website to be more of a connecting place rather than a place where you come to and you get your end result. We like that people would come to the website and they would be branched off to other resources and connect with other places to talk about these kinds of things. So the word map was quite important. And also the word dance is something I want to bring up, that our resources are from me and Katrina's dance background, from a dance perspective, but also it's not limited to people who identify as dancers. And that we hope that this website is open to all types, to all forms, and to all people to use. And then if you would like to click over to our resources, Flynn. So during the beginning of the residency, we curated like a giant list of resources, and it was maybe like 2 or 3 pages. And personally, I know that when you go and search for resources, it can get quite overwhelming with all of the different options and all of the numbers and just a lot of things to look at, especially when you're in a place where you are dealing with your mental health. So we dwindled it down to these 5, which obviously is no representation of all the helplines and all the types of help out there. But a lot of them are actually underneath the same company or same organization. So a lot of different numbers will connect you to the same organization, which can get quite confusing and overwhelming. So these are just the 5 that we've put together that we think represents and provides a vast array of help. And also, as Katrina has said, that this website is an ongoing project, and we don't have a end goal of what we want the website to look like. So obviously these resources will be updated and changed, and yeah, but obviously feel free to find our website and have a look around. And I will now hand over to Katrina to speak about the other parts of our website.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vasu. So the testimonials were really important to us because we believe that sometimes reading about other people's experiences with regard to mental health can be really empowering, to know that you're not actually alone. I think especially with COVID and lockdown, but more generally, we can often find ourselves being quite lonely. And these testimonials are there to maybe make you feel less alone. We're not going to go into the testimonials specifically. They're all anonymous. And they each carry trigger warnings based on the subject matter that a clinical psychologist who we asked to read through them identified as potentially triggering information. So those are there, and these are a really good example of this being a living document, because the testimonials will be added to. We've got a few still out. Given the nature of the writing, we wanted to empower our writers and speakers to take as much time as they needed. So there will be more testimonials added, and I invite you to, if you feel curious, check them out in your own time. And then along similar lines, our podcast series, which we've released one publicly, and we've done all of 4 interviews. So we've got another 3 podcasts dropping in the coming weeks. I think the next one is dropping tomorrow. And our podcasts were probably, for me, the more exciting and nervous-making part of this residency, where we spoke to 4 amazing humans that are working within dance, about their personal experiences with mental health. But also it just became really clear that it was a space for us to discuss where we stand and what our values are in dance. So we've prepared a short trailer of that, in which Xavier Breed and Miriam Eskilsson, there's a short segment of their interviews, but we also spoke with Chrissy Kokri and Marianne Schultz. So those will also be coming soon. So I'll just ask Flynn to play our trailer, podcast trailer.
Hello, this is our Dance Care Map podcast, where our upcoming interviews are with Xavier Breed, Miriam Eskilsson, Marianne Schultz, and Chrissy Corkedy. We discuss these practitioners' journeys through dance and the implications that it has had on their mental health, in hopes to open up and normalize these conversations.
I'm not grateful for the pandemic. I think it's an awful thing, and I'm really upset about it. I am grateful for the fact that it kind of stopped me from throwing a bunch of ideas out into the world that were really rushed and not really fully thought through. Because I think there was like a sense when I was graduating that I had to immediately prove to everyone that I was going to make something and do something and be a productive human being, which there's nothing wrong with making things and doing things, but I was more concerned, I think, about putting something out there than what I was actually putting out there.
I think it's that whole going back to, you could be amazing at dance, but like at dancing as a movement and as a practitioner, but if it's not filling your cup, do not do it. Like don't do it. Because at the end of the day, you are the one that is suffering from this. And you don't want another. There's a lot of dancers that have traumatic experiences that I'm sure that we just don't talk about, but that's because we are in an industry that is very cutthroat, very competitive, very detrimental to our mental health, and we just don't talk about it. And it's seen as we have to constantly be resilient because we are constantly on the lookout for new projects, and we're constantly having to reaffirm ourselves, trying to say that, to be an artist, we have to be constantly creating or be practicing something.
Yeah, that's us. Thank you again to MAP, but also to the other artists, because it's been really fulfilling to learn from all of you. Which brings me to introducing the next project. The next project is Little Black Boxes, and I will hand it over to Carleen and Jay. Thanks.
Hey, hello everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. Jay, who you'll see with me, and I are co-artistic directors of Hijinks Youth Company. We're based in Auckland. As a company, we give creative learning and agency to a group of young physical performers using a blend of circus, dance and physical theatre to make work with our young people. Our current company members are between the ages of 13 and 18 years old and come from a range of artistic backgrounds. And let's actually see some of those faces now, because we're lucky enough to have some of them with us tonight. Cool. So the first phase of our project Little Black Boxes began during Aotearoa's level 4 lockdown. And Jay and I really wanted to do something that sort of acknowledged the strange and difficult times New Zealanders were going through, and I guess give voice to their experiences, ultimately trying to respond artistically to the challenging times rather than in spite of them. We collected stories and pictures from over 100 8 to 10-year-olds from Westmere Primary in Auckland, and we began weekly one-on-one Zoom conversations between our young people and residents of Somerset Retirement Village in Nelson. This residency has explored the ways to fold these experiences and collected stories into film work that's been devised by our young people. And this month has seen us take some of our previously distanced explorations into a shared physical space, and then we were swiftly thrown back into the digital space as Auckland moved back into level 3. We have 4 films to share tonight, created over the last month with our young people, and they've all folded in the real words shared by our other participants, both young and old. Moving back into level 3, we rise to the challenge of suddenly having to film these with the devices that our young people had on hand, and guiding the creative process across Zoom and Messenger. I might actually just get our young people to introduce themselves before we move into our first film. Jana, you can start us off.
Hi, I'm Jana and I'm 14 years old.
Hi, I'm Ruby and I'm 16 years old. Hi, I'm Mary. I'm 18 years old.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm 15 years old.
Great, and we're going to hear a little bit more from some of these young people and the experiences that they've had over this residency after we watch this first film. So the first film tonight is Talking to Myself by Ruby.
Something lingered in the back of my mind. Gosh, it said, this is going to take a while. Have I ever told you you've got nice hair? Don't make it too short. You just think that I will be very angry if you do. Why am I so lonely? I haven't got the patience to do a jigsaw. This is the first time I ever wanted to go back to school. A playground to me is like a brother to you. I better not get too tearful. No, I won't cry. I'll try not to. I find it a great comfort that I can sit here and talk to her. I sometimes worry that someone might hear me and think I'm talking to myself. Ruby Red Bike. pointy petals, sporty clothes. I'd love to see you in face.
Well done, Ruby. Fantastic work from you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jay. I was introduced earlier, but I didn't get a chance to say hello. I'm the other co-director for Hijinks. And we're just going to have a little bit of a discussion. One of the things that obviously we were faced with initially with this plan, we were hoping to have things like legitimate cameras, and we were probably going to go over to each one of the kids' houses and kind of film it that way. But then, of course, we got thrown back into level 3 and suddenly had a lot of a lot less of that we could do. So what I want to bring up specifically is just some of the challenges that they each had to face, and also some of the opportunities that they saw that created. So I want to get Ruby and Daniel specifically to speak to those things.
Well, yeah, it was quite a shock when we got thrown into level 3 on that Tuesday night. And then we realized that we weren't going to be able to use professional film gear, and we were going to have to use the cameras that we already had at our house. So that was a bit of a challenge, and probably the hardest technical thing that I had to do was getting a shot of a bird's eye view from looking down on the bottom of my stairs. And I didn't really want to bother the people in my house to help me. So I got a rake and I stuck it through the railing at the top of the stairs, and then I used rubber bands to attach it and attach the phone to the rake. And it was a bit wobbly, but it worked.
Yeah, so while there were a few difficulties in terms of technology and just being in lockdown again, there were also some new opportunities. For example, I learnt that I had to be decisive about things, because usually in hijinks we're sort of like a support group for each other, where if we don't know what to do with our performance or whatever we're creating, we're not sure what move to do next or what tempo or anything like that, we'll help each other and we can help each other decide. But with this, we didn't have each other, so we were able to focus on specific things and try and be decisive, which I found quite difficult, but it was very useful and helped you to figure out what to focus on and how to pick the right movement for what you're creating. Yeah.
Fantastic. Really, really great. Thanks for those thoughts, you two. With that being said, we're going to move on to showing our next film. And this one is called Won't Be a Nuisance, and it was done by Jana.
So one of the things that has been really interesting about this process is actually just how much richness we had in all of the offerings from the younger and older people. And it sort of feels like we could make 10,000 films from all of the vast array of experiences, and really, really special ways that people kind of communicated the quite intangible feelings that people were experiencing. And Ruby and Mary, I'm interested to hear from you both in terms of sort of how it was in the process to have like that much to draw from, and how you worked with all of that sort of richness in your own making.
Yeah, so for me, I found that with my the elderly person that I was grouped with, most of what he talked about was just a feeling of loneliness. And when I read what the kids had written for my set of what the kids had given, it was a lot of focus on loneliness. And I think maybe compared to the other people, had a very specific focus on one thing, which was loneliness, like I've said. So it was very interesting to be able to have that one main theme or feeling, but then to have all of these different experiences and perspectives of what loneliness was, and to be able to figure out different ways of showing that instead of just showing one perspective of lots of different themes. Was that the same for you, Mary, or was it any different?
Yeah, like Colleen said, we just had so much material to work with. We had pages and pages of kids writing and hours of Zoom conversation with the older folks, and it was quite awesome to sort of dig out the sort of all of the golden bits and really narrow it down, which was also a hard process, and narrowed it down to kind of like 10 sentences per film. And there's so many kind of possibilities. There's a thousand different ways to approach like a sentence, you know? And so I think the way I approached it was just reading the sentence and going completely with my gut feeling of what the imagery might be. Yeah, and it was great because the different perspectives from the different age groups were special in that the children had these very kind of simple, light-hearted perspectives on things, or kind of innocent sort of viewpoints and comments, whereas the elderly had very like wise or like metaphorical insight to give to us, but all of it was easily able to be put together because all of it was human and all of it was somehow something we could connect with personally, I feel.
Yeah, and I also felt that it was quite interesting because you could see a difference in, and you were able to tell who, like what quote was from an elderly person and what quote was from a primary schooler, but then occasionally you'd find a gem from a primary schooler that just sounded so profound or ominous, and it was great. It was really fun to like find that. And then there were some from the elderly that were just so simple and so like, oh yeah, that's just so obvious and like readily available for me to just understand and take in. And it was really interesting to see the difference and to try and interpret whether it was from an elderly person or from the primary schoolers, which also added, I think, another layer into the perspectives behind the different feelings that we got presented with.
Yeah, it was seriously awesome to use the exact words that they said. I thought that was really important and awesome, because it made it feel so much more authentic and and meaningful to really have their exact voice in it.
Yeah, I think you both did a really great job also of like layering in your own humanness and experience to it, because, you know, as art makers and artists, we are very human too. And I think, yeah, having that sort of empathy to understand a little bit maybe where some of those experiences have come from, but ultimately just being able to like layer them into your own humanness. You both, yeah, did amazing jobs at that. So well done. So we're going to shoot into watching our next film. So this next film is by Daniel, and it is titled Of Anything.
I miss Hugo. He was kind, tall, funny, a good sport. And especially happy. Well, it was a nice life, yes. It was freedom that you could get outside and roam around. I think more of those times now. It was quite a high hill. I don't know if I could do it now. I'm afraid. I'd like to cuddle a cat. He was a big, black, fluffy cat with yellow eyes. He was a lovely cat. there were some things in the pantry that I didn't even know about, and I loved them. Your thoughts just go back to different times of your life. I've been spending so much time in my room. I've got a lot to think about, really. Well, I can't really think of anything.
So kind of starting to piggyback a little bit of what Mary and Ruby already talked about, or touched on briefly, was the idea that they started to get to layer themselves into these films. And Hijinks, like, it's a circus company, but we kind of use the word circus acrobatics to encompass a lot of different styles of movement. And because of that, not every single child that comes through has a big background in acrobatic movements. And, you know, we've got dancers come through, we've got people with, you know, acting and theater come through. I haven't really done it before, but it provides a really unique avenue. So Jana and Mary, I'd really like to hear from you both, from, you know, your different backgrounds. Mary, you've been in the company for quite a while, and Jana, you're just brand new. To touch on what those experiences have been for you based on that, and what opportunities and things that you feel that you've started to get from it.
Yeah, so I come from a predominantly dance background, specifically ballet, but all types of dance. And I just started hijinks this year, and I feel like through hijinks and getting the opportunity to take part in Little Black Boxes, I've really been able to explore more creativity within my movements. And coming from a dance background, dance is all about constantly moving with music and on stage and performing. But through Little Black Boxes, I've learned creativity and like really getting to explore art through the simplicity of movement. And I find that really interesting. And it was super fun to get to film and do it at home, but get to express it through filming and videoing. And yeah, what are your thoughts, Mary?
Yeah, hijinks is amazing because it has always made space and room for us young people to explore and like celebrate. It's celebrated to explore kind of human feelings that aren't super you can't really explain them in words type of feelings, and we're always trying to strive for that, because that's what makes, you know, the art so impactful sometimes, is just how it makes you feel. And yeah, I have been in hijinks for quite a few years now, and it's on the side of like, I train in circus arts, but it's always felt like it gives circus so much more meaning, and movement so much more meaning, to add this element of we have detailed conversations on how to express things in just the right way, or how to articulate all these different types of stories or feelings or emotions or voices. And we're given so much independence, so much more independence, and so we're given so much opportunities to give our own input than you would in like many other places that young people are, like school and everything like that. Young people are underestimated, and we are just told to be quiet and told to listen. But we can have detailed conversations. We can create really cool stuff. And so we're so grateful for Carleen and Jay providing us such a great process. Like with this particular process, there's been so much checking in, so much communicating and support given to us throughout the whole time. And the fact that we created these really, really cool things in a lockdown is awesome, and it proves that it can be done, and we're capable of so much. And yeah, I'm just super grateful to Carleen and Jay for the platform to be able to share. It's one thing to be able to make a project, but it's another thing to be able to actually share it with the community like this. And I would definitely think groups and processes like this would be great for more young people in the world. Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Well, we're super grateful to you all as well, because we couldn't, you made the cool things. So that's going to bring us to a final film. And this is called Thinking Time, and it's by Mary.
you as nervous as I am?
So we had a lot of different things that, like Colleen and I had a lot of different things that we wanted to explore with this project. We wanted to figure out how to incorporate text in a performance setting. We wanted to explore just how to make films in interesting ways. We wanted to explore how to use circus and movement on that film in a way that was actually useful rather than something that was just a live performance that you recorded. And I think we found really cool ways to start exploring that more. But most importantly, the core of all of the work that we do is providing a platform for our young people to have a voice. We really wanted to take the opportunity with this to bring diverse age groups together in a community setting that built up and supported these young people making something. And at the end of it, it was so important to us that we could see specifically each one of our young company members in these videos. And it was really quite amazing, like letting them make all of the decisions on the stuff. We gave them prompts, we worked on them with prompts, but all of the stuff that they came back with was stuff that we probably never would have thought of ourselves. And because of that, pulling out these films from all of these things has been such an enriching thing for us to see, because each one is so unique to the young person that was the driving force behind it. And I think that's where we find the most success with any of the work that we do. Would you agree with that, Colleen?
100% yes. And it's actually been really quite interesting over this last month, exploring the ways to let those young driving voices be supported across this digital space. Because I think a lot of time there is an assumption that somehow young people are fine in a digital realm and it's normal to them and easy. But actually, hearing from our young people, this has not been an enjoyable time for a lot of them in terms of our level 4 lockdown experience and sort of having to navigate so much in this digital space. And so over this last month, it's felt really important, all of the figuring out that we've done of how to make that a space that actually works for this age group and works to, I guess, support them to drive their own art. Because, as artists in the world, it's, we're always feel like we're in our own little void. And so trying to find ways to counter that has been really important and has felt like a really enriching part of this residency. As well as Jay and I just really being able to sit into the creative explorations, like we've heard Jay and actually a lot of the young people mentioned tonight, how important it was to find authentic ways to have the voices of our other participants layered into these films. And so often the work that we make draws from people and draws from human experiences, but oftentimes we're much less concerned with the details and it's more about the feelings. And obviously this work is hugely inspired by feelings, but there's been something really interesting about staying true to the words that were spoken and finding a way to do that justice, which has been amazing to participate in. So we're really thankful for that and thankful to be working with such a cool group of young people. yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to take this project forward and find new platforms and new ways to sort of keep connected to our other participants also. So watch this space. Great, next up we are going to move to hear from Emma Murray and Julia Palladini with a live annotated encounter with my archive. So I'll hand over to them now.
filming with your computer? Where did it stop?
Mm-hmm. Sweet. Yes. Sweet. This is a live performance of my rehearsal archive for Monsterhood, the making of. Monsterhood, just one word. Monsterhood, then full stop, the making of. Yeah, okay, forget it. With a Lativa Versch, she did the objects, Emma Murray, choreography, and Till Hilbrecht. Till, it's a name, Hilbrecht, on music.
probably also because of there's so many possibilities. I think that one is tricky.
Great, okay, let's just stop there. Thanks. Thanks very much. Is that okay if we just take a small break now? This is the moment that Lativa's mother comes in. She's got Lativa's 6-month-old baby. So we're going to have a small break now while Lativa breastfeeds. Feel free just to get up and shake your legs or have a small stretch. We will get going in a moment. Perhaps this is a nice opportunity just to close your eyes and enjoy the darkness while you're there. Inflating and deflating your rib cage, feeling the top of your head floating towards the ceiling, and your tailbone in the opposite direction. On your next inhalation, you're going to reach your fingertips and your toes to the ceiling, whilst at the same time wrapping one leg around your head and inserting the fingers inside the armpit. Now don't worry if you don't happen to have a spare, we can just use anything to hand. Hold it there, breathe, not much longer now. You might have noticed the birthday cake on the piano, of course my birthday, yep. Yeah, we will be singing Happy Birthday a bit later, so please feel free to join in and stick around for a piece of birthday cake after. Good. Okay, I think Lativa's almost done.
Makes a difference.
Should we? Yeah, I think so.
Do you want this quite fast? It changes. I have to feel. I'm not sure.
Object should snap. Select rotate. 4. Object should snap. To the object. 3. Move to desired rotation. 4. Object should snap so that it is flat with respect to the surface. Move to desired rotation. 2. Select rotate. 3. Move to desired rotation. 1.
Okay, let's get you off. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Why don't you take a hold of the legs and just pull them off? Yeah, use your hands. That would work. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that could be really nice.
Da, 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 da. this is the bit where we start talking. You've decided to talk now.
Slide in Emma's presentation. Perhaps we can start having a conversation. Emma, is that correct?
Hi, Julia. Yes, you can go ahead. Let's say this is the moment you speak.
Should everyone come up with their camera?
Yeah, you're all invited to open your cameras if you'd like. Yeah.
Cool live stream. Cool concept.
Hi, everyone. Okay, perhaps just a moment to come back to the word of faces and Zoom setting after the presentation of Emma's work that I am also seeing for the first time in a sense. I had seen versions of it, but the very nature of this work is that those changes. My name is Julia, and I've been working with Emma in this residency, and I thought at the end of this presentation, I will give you a little bit of the background for around this project, tell you what we have been doing and thinking during this month, to set up a little bit the space for a conversation, because we would like to invite you to have a conversation around the work that Emma just presented, but also around some of the questions that surround it and some of the questions that came up during our residency. So the premise of this residency was that Emma had encountered my work. I'm a writer and a critical theorist, and I have been working a lot around the notion of affective archive on the one hand, and on the other, yes, I see that I should come a little closer to the computer. Could you hear me better now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Emma invited me to join the process of this residency, trying to explore what the dialogue between a critical theorist and the choreographer could be, in the common idea that it would be undesirable to have a theory parachuted on a practice, and therefore I'm not going to explain you what you just saw. I will just give you some hints around the question that we went through. And these questions were how to think about one's archive, how to go back to the materials of the creative process, and how to put boundaries between something that ended up being part of a finished work and everything that in a way was left behind because it was considered as a waste, or everything that survives the creative process. So Emma had worked on this project called Monsterhood 1 year ago, and the project had was presented in a theater, was fruit of a collaboration, had a beginning and an end. So the question for this residence was how to go back to this archive, how to reopen the archive, and what constitutes the archive, what constitutes the inside of an archive, and what is the outside of the archive. But also, what is the relation between the production of art, or the production in this sense of a choreographic piece, and life itself. And this is a question that, in a way, the piece itself was already asking, because it was a piece about monsterhood, which is a play of word, obviously, between the figure of the monster and the figure of the mother, and how these two figures interact with objects and then bring in another figure, which is the figure of the machine. So in a sense, it's very interesting that right now we are seeing the work that Emma has been doing on this archive, and some of these questions are returning, that are questions of what are the boundaries between where do I end, when do I end and you begin, which is a classical question of mother and child, but in a strange way right now in this socially distanced theater attending, there seems to be a question of where do I end as an artist and where do you begin as a spectator. So one of the ways we have been addressing the question of going back to an archive during this month is actually to think about pleasure and to think about the particular enjoyment of dwelling into an archive, rather than regarding an archive as something that you need to select some pieces, no? To try to see what was not yet exhausted, in a way, in the archive in terms of question. And therefore, some of the questions that we started to talk about are about authenticity. For example, what is authentic? What is a trace of the performance that actually happened? Or what is something that is fabricated as truth or fabricated as authenticity, There was a moment during the performance, you will have noticed, when the video would stop in order to allow the visual artist Emma was collaborating with to breastfeed her child. And I wondered, did this really happen? And then we had a conversation about it, and actually this did not happen, okay? So this was, in a sense, a kind of an echo or something that, however, could very well have happened during rehearsal, right? But because this is something that is supposedly related to private life, is usually something that is left out of the archive. And so for us, the question, and that was a really interesting exchange, was what is inside the archive and what is outside the archive, and what should be archived, even if it's not part of the work itself. During the previous presentation, I was hearing some of your comments, especially some of the young people that took part in Caroline and Jay's project, and you were mentioning how much life entered into the work. And so it's really interesting to think about what will be archived of this period in which, in a sense, we are constantly online, we are constantly producing images, we are constantly creating some backlog, no? But the most interesting question is what use will we make of these materials, no? Because an archive, in a sense, is never just a place or is never an accumulation, but is always the creating the possibility of a structure so that some stories will be told in the future, no? And so, in a sense, in the end, you are creating, working with an archive always is much more related to the future than to the past. It's much more related to whatever use of the archives we are preparing, like how the archive prepare narratives for the future. I know that it's a long evening, so I don't want to go on, and I want to be able to have a conversation, to enable a conversation. So I would like for you to be able to maybe intervene or ask questions, respond to Emma's performance, or to some of the things that I highlighted. And also, we are both very, very happy to discuss more about the methodology of our collaboration, as well as, more specifically about the archival material and the piece, because I do consider this a piece actually that came up out of this residency. Is really, in a way, it's another crystal in which the creative matter and the imagination that went into monsterhood organized itself, no? So I would like, you to intervene and actually start a conversation. Perhaps I can return and then I can give the floor to Emma herself. Or Emma, do you want to do it now, or to have first a round of comments and then to come back to the work? How do you feel?
I'm happy to launch into a conversation and talk about the work, as well as the other people, the other artists that were involved.
Could people let me know if you want to speak raising your hand on Zoom? In the raise hand, you have the possibility to raise your hand on Zoom so that I can see it if you want to intervene. Yeah. Pastor, do you want us?
There was a part during that performance where she paused and she said to close your eyes and stretch. And I've got a lamp up here, and I turned my lamp off when she said that, and I closed my eyes and I started breathing just as she said to start breathing. And then I put my hands here when I was breathing, just as she said to feel your rib cages and reach up. And it felt really, it put me in a warped place, because that was pre-recorded, so it's an archive, but it was informing the it wasn't, I didn't hear it and then do those things. I did those things at the exact same time as I heard it, and it was quite a weird place to be in, to have that archive inform my present so specifically. And I thought that was real beautiful for me to go through. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. That's great to hear that it was interactive in some way. And yeah, I mean, I guess as dancers, we're quite familiar with that kind of language, that kind of terminology in terms of relaxing and listening to our breathing. But yeah, in terms of the work that I was showing, and the archive of monsterhood that I was interacting with, I mean, that becomes an even more kind of complicated instruction when you've got sort of inanimate and artificial bodies that you're also moving with or listening to as you move. I was hoping to slightly corrupt that instruction to listen to your breathing, as well as invite people to take part, of course. Yeah, cool.
Any other comment or response? Julia.
One second. Just got an echo. There we go. I wanted to talk about authenticity because that comes up with Emma's work, but I feel like it's something that everybody in each project was really endeavouring to explore in a variety of different ways. I think with the podcast and the website, it is an invitation for authenticity in that realm that I think perhaps is quite new for the dance industry. And I think for the young people and Hijinks and Carleen and Jay, there's a interesting, I guess, frustration in a way at the limitations that you found yourself dealing with, but also the desire to be authentic and telling those stories of young people, and Emma also playing with what's authentic or not. And for instance, Ruby's tear, even, like that's an interesting moment of authenticity. And I suppose in each instance also there is an archive that we now have through this body of work. So I wanted to just throw open a conversation around authenticity, perhaps to anyone who wanted to speak to that in regards to their project or how they found it related. Yeah.
I wrote my thesis for my master's on the question of authenticity in dance, and one of the things that came up a lot was the moments of like mistake. Just a camera falls down and all of a sudden you see the floor, and so I think that's also just present in this medium, when people pop up and it's not their turn, and the stress of all of that, and the idea that in performing arts we have to keep that behind the scenes, and then the funny conundrum of when it's live, a lot of the stuff that happens behind the scenes does actually come onto stage and become a part of the work. And I think a lot of that is also, with Emma, your text dictation and that kind of friction that is created. And so, yeah, I think those were my favorite parts tonight. The parts where people were like, oh, this person is now part of this performance. And nothing within a performative settings, we can't take anything for granted, including the mistakes. And within that is just this incredible vulnerability that is not, that we maybe don't like consciously engage with, but the second you go into performing arts, you put yourself in a really vulnerable place. And for our project, is about like, yeah, let's celebrate that vulnerability and create a little bit of a cocoon around it, so that these moments of mistakes, quote unquote, can continue to happen and continue to inform our work and continue to inform like a living practice. Living practice being the mistakes and equally the things we've planned for. Yeah, rambling. Signing off now.
I just wanted to connect what Katrina said with Emma. You had a quote in your piece where you wrote, I didn't get the exact quote, but glitches always contain a germ. Can you say that one more time? I tried to write it down, but I wasn't quick enough.
Glitches always contain within them a germ of a new world. Mm-hmm. That is a quote from a text written about a Deleuze text from a Goldsmith University entrant. Yeah, it's a quote that I intersperse with some of my own writing and obviously sourced or found text.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about glitches, and Emma, for a long time was wondering whether the low tech could be a decision and how to actually embrace this. And I think that's quite interesting because, echoing some of the things that Katrina was suggesting now, I mean, we don't know for how long we are in this, let's face it. we really don't know. And I think it makes sense to actually explore what it means to reconfigure the modes in which we work in relation to the given circumstances, which I think is very much what movement art practice is trying to do actually in this residency. And I think never thinking that this is a surrogate activity for something else that exists in another world, no? And this is a challenge, of course, because we are all used to think that we exist in a space that is public and where there are bodies and where you smell and where you sweat and where there are circumstances in which you can see the glitch happening before your eyes. But at the same time, I think it's very important to think about the different possibilities as well that are being explored. So I was really interested in the relation with the machine that was created with the computer. So, for example, the fact that the dictation would always result and create a meaning, would always look for a meaning that was different. And so this created the game in which Emma was constantly running after a meaning, but then this became the movement itself of the text. This would probably exist in a very different way if it was to happen on a very large screen, and would have a different place in choreography as well. So one of the things I kept asking Emma during our conversation throughout the residencies, how are you choreographing these quotes? These quotes are becoming part of the landscape that you are choreographing now. They were not part of the archive before. And so where do you place them? And how the way they appear as written text, or if they are like they get written on the screen, during the performance, what's the difference? What's the dialogue you have with them? No? I myself, there are some quotes from one of my texts, and I myself was seeing these quotes arriving and obviously entering a completely different logic. So it was really interesting to also think about the relation with the text and the various elements and the temporality of those. I was seeing that someone was raising their hand, but I was not sure. No, maybe someone just that disappeared.
I was just going to say, it's exciting, isn't it? Drama. Mary was in a way playing with something similar with the text that she was typing into her screen, right, Mary? Is that true in your film?
Sorry, what do you mean?
So
yeah.
Emma is playing with text.
Yeah.
I mean, she's doing it live, slightly premeditated. It's fair to say, right, Emma? Yeah. And Mary, you also played with text within your video, right? You enter thoughts and ideas, and they come and they pass.
Yeah. Yes. They weren't live, but yes, the text was very much the driving force of all of the content. Really, it was sort of the structure of everything and the borders.
I find it interesting that text is becoming something that we're playing with choreographically, and in each of these projects there is a detailed engagement with language and text, and perhaps a different kind of consideration is going on yeah, because of this format, which you could create in a live way, but I don't know, you'd have to have a screen, you know, like I think that's kind of interesting. Just making that point.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to see Mary's film. I was thrown out into another room at some point. I hope I get the chance to see it, and how you interacted with the film and the writing. I found the skills that I have as a mover, as a dancer, choreographer, really came into play in trying to get this writing practice, this live writing practice, in my case, moving. And it was very much like being in a studio creating choreography, because I was making decisions about timing and how much to say and how little to say, and how much to reveal, and when, pace, and lots of decision making that would normally go on in a studio was getting made in terms of this writing practice. Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Emma, do you want to maybe speak a little bit about the different forms of writing that you have been exploring during this time, and what kind of, how did you decide what kind of text, and how did you select the material? Because I think that's an interesting point about the encounter with the archive itself, and also perhaps about all the other temporalities of your life, how they entered into the work. Very often when we would meet, I mean, we are not in the same place, so when we would have some dates to discuss what, you know, we had a weekly meetings, and every time we said, Emma was saying, okay, so I'm doing this, but there is I'm cooking dinner at the same time. And I say, okay, we are meeting now, but I have an appointment at some point, no? And so we were discussing a lot about this illusion always that when you're working on a new project, you have all the time in the world. And the fact that somehow this is never the case. And so going back to the archive is also going back to a matter that is there and continues, and it's your research. And simply because of the compelling urge to always produce something new, this gets to be thought about the new work. But actually, one of the sentences that we went back over and over again to is Audre Lorde's sentence about there are no new ideas, but there are only new way of making them felt and feeling them. And so thinking about the archive and artistic production in this way was useful. This is also echoing in my mind or resonating with some conversations that we had in the workshop we had last week, especially with Julia's work, and thinking about the lifetime that is also archived in the archive of the work. So I don't know, Emma, if you wanted to say something, because this was really a returning point in our common work.
Yeah, certainly. Through the residency, the invitation to consider all the domestic debris and dust of life as just as much a part of the work as anything else, really. Was and of course including pleasure as well, you know, which was a result of working with and meeting Julia, I think, in this way. And yeah, in terms of the texts and the decisions or choices about what to reveal of my archive, and they were led very much by the content of the work that it was interacting with, and the kind of hybrid, I guess, forms that I was, along with Lativa, the visual artist, I was interested in kind of unpacking. So that directed a lot of the decisions about the texts and the writing. but alongside sort of trying to make it accessible, obviously, and invite people into my rehearsal space. I mean, but certainly the potential here in a digital space to play with fiction and what is real and what is not seems quite broad and quite rich, a fertile place to blur certain lines of what's reality, what's recorded, what's live. I'm not quite sure if I've answered your question, Julia, but yeah, the residency that we undertook together was a real chance to well, we proposed to try and make it as almost as a physical experience as possible, and that meant kind of considering our collaboration as we considered the residency rather as rooms of resonance that we could file and store the the materials that mostly Julia was responsible for providing, and how that interacted with the already existing work that was there in Monsterhood. That was also, of course, another real aim of the work, to try and insert or try to insert physical presence inside of this space, to encourage liveness, and the accidents that Katrina was speaking about were really encouraged, though made me incredibly nervous, I have to say. This is a really nervous, this is a very stressful kind of interaction, which is strangely lonely as well, because I'm in this space in Switzerland all alone, but it's really nice to see all your faces.
Julia.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I keep ramming myself into this conversation. But I was curious, actually, that brought up a question for me. Carleen, you were talking about the assumption that young people are good with technology, or that they all use it and they don't even think about it and it's no big deal. And you were obviously working with the elderly as well. And I'm curious about whether, our assumptions are that the elderly aren't great at working with technology, or wouldn't be adaptable, or, we've all got had conversations with our parents about how to use emojis and things. But I wondered if you could talk to that assumption, maybe, or the idea that you're taking these little moments of text and language and reframing them, or recontextualizing an authenticity around them as well. And I'm curious about how engaged and how you manage to engage technologically with the elderly.
Great question. So I think firstly we were really lucky to have some staff from Somerset who were really on board with the project from the start, because it did need a lot of support from within in terms of the technology, but also just the time requirements. We had 7 or 8 conversations every week over Zoom, which requires, the iPad being set up and taken to the residence room and making sure that it's quiet, and making sure that no visitors come at that same time, and all the kind of things that you negotiate in that sort of world. But surprisingly, I think, firstly, the staff sort of engaged people who they thought would really benefit from sharing and from those conversations. And I think conversations kind of became the most important part of what we were doing, and the technology sort of faded away. And I don't know, there was just something really beautiful about hearing older people just chat with someone quite young, and that chatting in the same way that we've sort of been talking about and thinking about with archiving and what's real and what's not, sort of had this beautiful drifting between the present experiences of people and other things in their lives, and our young people and what they had going on. And it sort of felt like the humanness of two people engaging in a conversation together is what held it together, not the technology. And the technology was actually surprisingly didn't really get in the way of that. And if people couldn't see that well, then they couldn't see that well. And if the iPad was in a strange position, it was in a strange position because it didn't matter, because the conversation sort of like hid it all and kept it real. But interestingly, from the other side, there were quite a few really interesting sharings from the school children who talked about things like not having the phone numbers of any of their friends because people don't have home phones, and at an age where maybe they don't have mobile phones. And so there were some really interesting kind of threads from that age group as well, that I guess in a similar way, if the technology is there, it can be used, but it's actually people just not having it in the first place. And that was, really interesting to hear from a lot of the younger participants. And I don't know, technology just sort of played a part in every part of our process and was kind of horrible and wonderful at the same time. And I think that's pretty reflective of like the world that we're in right now, where it's like a blessing and a curse, and it's navigating, where it becomes an opportunity or where it allows something very human to happen, or when it's just in the way or not available, and so just needs to not be part of what we're making.
I think that it would be really good to wind up as much as I think we could keep on talking. And I love the intersections that are occurring between the projects, and I hope that further conversations arise. But I was just wondering if it would be okay if it'd just be nice to hear from everyone or one person from each collaboration about what the next step is with the project, or where you think that what kernels will remain, or what the next steps are. Maybe Fasu, maybe do you want to go first?
Yeah, so because we've got the website and it's ongoing, another part of the website that we are going to do, but we didn't think couldn't fit it within the time of the residency, but that wasn't the point of the residency, was a mentorship program that we want to set up to connect people, or to have mentors on board that have their like strengths and stuff, and have people that need help with something like mentoring on a program or mentoring as a dancer, as a choreographer, and they could come to the website and be set up and create a dialogue, because then also it will open up a lot more conversations and connections between the like generations of dance. And we also spoke, we recorded one of our podcasts today with Chrissy Corkety, where we spoke about the separations within the generations of dance, which I think is quite important to address. Did you have anything else to add, Flynn or Katrina?
Just that we've got like 3 more podcasts that will be dropping throughout the next couple. A lot of our schedule got pushed when we went into lockdown. That's why we're a bit behind schedule. And then we've also, with the testimonials, those are ongoing. So we have some that will still get posted, but also are just always open for anyone to share experiences anonymously through the email that is linked to the website.
If you do want to keep up with the podcasts, the feed is on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as Dance Care Map Podcast. and they should be coming out Mondays for the next few weeks.
I go next. I'm proposing to continue contributing to the website that was set up during our residency with Julia. As I mentioned, we referred to it as these kind of rooms of resonance, and I intend to continue working there. I found it a really good platform, place to gather research, and we also have a interview that I would upload and edit first and upload there. My hope is to continue collaborating with Julia in some way, and hopefully in person.
Yeah, I think the idea to start building, to keep working on the space and thinking about the timbre of resonance of the conversation is a really interesting way to think about something in spatial terms, in terms of space, when actual space is denied, and so we're working with time. So yeah, we will see, we will hopefully see how this continues, this can continue.
Guess we can go next. Well, we still have, there's 9 members in Hijinks, so we kind of still have like 5 videos to make. So we're gonna keep trucking along with those, but we're also, you know, we are live performance artists at the end of the day, so we are in the talks of how to eventually transpose this into something that can be used as a live piece, either in some kind of installation-y way or in a unique space, and using projection and, you know, utilizing the stuff that we came up with to make something that people can come physically see as well, and, you know, potentially tour around. So who knows, big dreams.
One of our big dreams is the National Circus Festival is happening in Nelson at the start of next year, which is where the retirement village is. And yeah, we're so keen to try and get our young people down there and sort of be in space with the older participants.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's all go and have coffee and croissants for Julia and Emma, and drinks and dinner for everyone else. Thank you so much for all your work. It's been a wonderful month, and an incredible group of people coming together and sharing your research. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone tuning in from around the world, and to the people who've come to the live, the live to the live stream, and to our funders, and also just acknowledging all the other artists that applied for the residency, of which there were many, and just wanting to acknowledge the work that they did, and I hope that those projects come to fruition as well. Some of them are actually going to be potentially in Ototahi Tiny Performance Festival. So take care, everybody. Take care out there, and enjoy the rest of your evening or day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.